Hello everyone, I've just got back from UK Games Expo, and while I've done a haul video, I thought why not talk about all of the different games I played and give you a short little verdict on all of them after one play. So, some of these I may have played more than once. Don't feel I'm trying to be rude, I'm on my phone already. This has just got my list basically of the games that I played. Let's go through them in order. So, as I started on the Friday and a little bit on the Saturday as well. So first of all, the first game I played was at the Hatshit Board Games UK stand, Crack List. Now, we played this small little card game, which you will have seen in my haul video. We played this basically while we were waiting for one of the other tables to finish up. It's a very sort of light, quick, party gamey sort of thing where you've got this hand of cards and you're trying to play them. They're letters or sometimes special things that maybe change the card in the middle, because that card in the middle is going to give you a topic. So it might be that the words that you're trying to come up with, they have to start they have to start with the letters in your hand, but it might be things you find on a desk. That might be the subject, and where you're like, I don't know any of these, but I can use this card to change the topic, and then you carry on round sort of thing. You know, for stuff on your desk, you might play an M for the word monitor or mouse, K for keyboard, but you can obviously get a little bit more creative than that with what's around the table. I had an S at one point and said, well, at lunch on my desk there would be a sandwich. Well, the other players around the table let that one through, so you can get that bit more creative and fun about it. And a sort of nice little twist, some of the harder letters allow you to give cards to the other people around the table. So, it sort of rewards you for going for the harder ones. The game we were waiting to play while we did play Crack List was After Us, which I have a copy here. This isn't actually a copy for me. I bought this the next morning, which probably shows that we maybe enjoyed it. So basically this sold out after 12 minutes on the first day, because they had a certain amount of copies each day. It sold out on the second day as well, but thankfully I got there to buy this from my friends Dom and Dwight, who absolutely loved this when we demoed it. It's a deck building game that's simultaneous, which means it's super quick in terms of, it's 45 minutes. I think that's pretty much going to be regardless of player count. We played it with 4. Actually, maybe it was 5 we played it with. Yeah, 5, sorry. And it still pretty much, apart from teach time, it took that 45 minutes. And we were told going into it, you sort of get halfway round the point track after 30 minutes and the latter half in 15, and that was pretty much bang on. And it really shows how your deck building levels you up, because you're playing, you get 4 cards each turn. You then have to put those 4 cards in an order, and they sort of fit next to each other. These boxes are created. Some cards just have like a full box on them, and you're going to get that resource or point or whatever. But others, at the edge, either edge, have these boxes where if you align something so it forms a full box with the card next to it, then you'll get it. Now, your basic cards don't have much to do with cards next to them, so it's only when you start getting the better cards from the middle market, that they start to have boxes on the left and boxes on the right, so it really matches up and you can create some really big combos. Hence, that latter half of the score track zooms past. Now, I screwed up a little bit while playing this. I went for some early points instead of building my engine. I think I always end up doing that in this sort of game, because it's like, oh, points, I can get some. And then regret that, I could have maybe got those better cards. So later on, I'm getting huge points rather than 1 or 2. But a lot of fun, and it's quite a bright, vibrant game, and yeah, it's certainly one that I want to play again. So as my friends have got a copy of it, hopefully that will happen. The next game on the list, that was Rome in a Day. This was one of the ones that I really wanted to go and see. I wanted to see it because it's an I Split You Choose game that's super quick, and well, it kind of lived up to the billing, to be honest. It's over in 4 rounds, and you're going to, each round, give your neighbour, it sort of varies, left or right, a choice. Now that choice is, these are tiles I draw from my pile, I then put a couple of buildings on the leftmost ones. Now I split these up. I split them into a bigger and a smaller pile, and then the person on the left is choosing from my 2 groups that I've made, while I'm choosing from the groups for the person on the other side, like wrapping around the table. So we're all doing that, making that choice from the other person, and then you're like, right, I need to build this sort of land up where it's going to score me points, because it's where the buildings are placed or what's around them, or they're scoring this large group of this colour. So a green building will score a big group of green. So you're trying to get them in the right place. Later on, as the game progresses, it's still quite a short game, you're like, right, I can't give you any more of the yellow windmills because you've got loads of yellow. One more is going to score you tons more points. Now, I won this game, I think, out of making a few good choices, but I think when you've played it a few times with the same group, you'll really start to be like, I'm really not going to make this tile a good offer, because I know how much you want it. And that's when I Split You Choose gets good. It's like, you want that yellow windmill. Okay, you can have the yellow windmill, but I'm going to get 4 other tiles. What are you going to do? I think it's a great choice. The theme is basically non-existent, but I really did enjoy Rome in a Day. Next up, I was super lucky to play My Island at the Cosmos stand. Now, that wasn't really available to preview and play at the expo, but they had a sort of a special copy snuck away. I'm going to do a special preview video on that from my one play of it, but let's just say if you liked My City, it's very similar, but with hexagons instead of squares. Yeah, that's kind of how simple that one was. Next up, also at the Cosmos stand, we played Inside Job. I went into this basically not knowing much about it. It's a trick-taking hidden traitor game. It's an interesting mechanic because it feels like you're playing The Crew, where these missions are coming out and you're trick-taking, and it's like, right, the last card has to be the highest. It has to win the trick. Or the second player has to play the lowest card. Or they have to play a purple or something like that. And then you throw in the hidden traitor. So all of a sudden it's like, oh, I didn't have a number higher than that to actually fulfill that objective. Oh, that's a shame. And if the insider manages to fail enough missions, they win. If the good guys manage to win enough missions, they win. Otherwise it comes down to a vote towards the end of the game where basically you're like, right, who do you think it is? And hopefully the good guys win, unless you're the insider, and then you're tripping people up, and hopefully someone else gets voted for it. Really interesting because it harks back to, for me, the logics in Battlestar Galactica, where you have this pile that you're playing cards into. In that, the deck also adds a card, so you're never quite sure if there's someone that's good or bad, because it might have failed because of that bad card. In this, you don't know if they're actually just unable to maybe play an odd card, a higher card, or stick to the same suit. You don't know what's in their hand. Now, you can try and remember, hang on, they said they didn't have an even blue earlier and they've just played the 4. I think that's a dodgy thing, but some people can also make the mistake. So it's an interesting one. We played a couple of rules wrong because it was slightly taught to us wrong. There's a nice thing about if you're a good guy and get to so many briefcases, winning the tricks basically, you reveal that you're good, which means it's a little harder for the insider when it comes to the vote. Say there's 3 of you, one of you's revealed as good, well, there's only 2 other people in the game, and one of them's the insider. There's a few extra roles that we didn't really get to play with, but would be included in the full game. Someone like the decoy that wants to be called out as the bad guy, even though they're not. So I could happily play that one again, but I'm probably not going to rush out to buy it. Next up is In the Footsteps of Darwin. Yes, another Darwin game that was significantly different to the other one that you're thinking of, Darwin's Journey. This is a very light family weight game. Now, for me, it's probably a little too light. It's slightly maybe lighter than that sort of Ticket to Ride style game. That's the sort of level they've gone for. There's a nice couple of twists. Effectively, there's this rondel in the middle. You take a tile from the row or column that this ship is sort of pointing at. Say you take the second tile away from the boat, it moves on 2, the market refills, and then that's the row or column that the next player is choosing from. So you can try and maybe screw someone over by giving them a bad choice, but mostly it's about building out these rows and columns of your sort of set collection. You can overbuild, which is the thing that makes it enough of a game for, I think, gateway gamers to enjoy. You can overbuild, and then that gives you a second or third or even fourth scoring bonus tile. That's a nice little one, because it's like, okay, I'm covering up some points on this tile, but I'm going to get this. But there's plenty of objectives to make it interesting of what you're choosing, when you're going to try and overbuild. And you've also trying to maybe get these rows or columns to get bonus points. So there's different mounts there, and there's some tokens to mitigate where the boat is. So you've got plenty of choices in there, but it's quite a light, quick game. I think families could enjoy that one quite a bit, but maybe just a little bit light for myself. Next up was Distilled. Now, this was a very sort of slow demo that we had. I had this booked in. I have positives and negatives about Distilled. I really like the sort of thematic elements of it. Unfortunately, one of the thematic elements makes me not enjoy the experience too much because it adds a push your luck element. If you watch the Best of the Month series here on the channel, you'll know that some of the other content creators have called this out as their favourite game of a previous month. I remember the Boxed Meeples doing that. For me, there's one element of the game where you've done all of this buying from the central market, you've got your ingredients, and you shuffle them up, and you take the top bit off, you take the bottom bit off, because when you're making alcohol, normally the top bits and the bottom bit aren't sort of as good as the rest. And then what you've got left is your alcohol that you've distilled. Unfortunately, I found that push your luck could, certainly in round 1, there's like 7 rounds, and it certainly speeds up and would get less push your lucky towards the end. But in that first round, it can feel quite deflating if you pull out the 2 key ingredients and you end up, like I did, just cooking moonshine, when someone next to you is like, oh, I just managed to do this gin, and they're like, okay, your luck was there for you and not for me. It felt, for me, while thematic, that push your luck felt a little out of place. I just wish, for me, that wasn't there. But like I say, other content creators from the Best of the Month series have definitely shouted out as one of their favourites. So, maybe it's me, maybe it's not, but Distilled was the end of my Friday, at least at the expo. We then went back to my friend's house and played some games there, including just one where an amazing clue of meatball was used about 4 times. Yeah, moving swiftly on to the few games that I played on the Saturday. I wasn't there for the full Saturday, but I did get to play a few games. Now, I played a full game of Tribes of the Wind. We did play one rule wrong, because despite it being taught to us correct, there's a whole thing of when you've moved these wind walkers onto a tile, you then need your next turn to flip it over. We basically got it as soon as they were there, it triggered. So we referred to it when we realised as an expo shortcut. Yes, the rest of the game we played correctly, and I did rather enjoy this. Tribes of the Wind is a game with beautiful cards, so vibrant colours. And those cards are important for two things. First of all, the back of them, and in the top corner so you can see it on your side, is an element type. So it's like wind, fire, leaf, earth and water. Depending on your cards, it's what card you can play. So maybe this card is if you've got more water than one of your neighbours, or two of your neighbours you can play it. And depending on how many of them you beat is how many resources of, say, water you're going to get. The next card is if you've got a fire, two fire symbols in your hand being on this sort of card holder, so everyone can see the backs. If you've got at least two fire symbols, you can play this, and it's going to let you get rid of some of the pollution on your board. Now, I went into this thinking it looks stunning, but maybe a little bit too busy on the board front. I came out of it, and I think all four of us that I've played it with three other people I didn't know, all four of us came out going, ooh, this is really good and a really interesting puzzle. Not only because the four different, I think there's 5 different characters have their own unique abilities that you can upgrade them. So when you do a couple of like objectives, you get one of your 4 upgrades that slots in, and that's then going for the rest of the time, and everyone's are slightly different. So you kind of maybe want to exploit that, which I really didn't manage to in the play, although I still came second, so you know, many routes to victory. And there are many routes to victory. Some people will want to be clearing this pollution just outright. Other people will want to be putting down these trees and then actually getting these windwalker people to them to then turn it into a village. That's going to score points. Even just saying I'm just discarding 3 cards from my hand to grab 3 from the central market, sort of refreshing what you've got. That puts a temple thing out that also triggers something else. So even refreshing your hand does something. It was a really nice experience. Sitting down to a game where it's like, that looks stunning, I want to give it a go. And often then that falls flat. And actually that game, Tribes of the Wind, only exceeded my initial expectations. And it's all about like, oh, what cards have my neighbours got? And I asked, because I'm a bit worried about 2 players, you use the central river in the middle of cards as that third player, your other neighbour, which means no admin, and also a double choice of, I want to pick this card up. A, it gets it out of that river, B, it adds it to my hand, and there's a lot of choices there that I'm sure will be very much enjoyed. I really want to play that one again to see how it sort of holds up over multiple plays, but I can't see it not holding up, to be honest. The next game we played, different group, I actually knew the people I was playing with this time, was a fun little kids game, and we played this multiple times. This is Crazy Tower XXL. Now, you don't think you can actually buy this, because we've actually looked afterwards to get it. You can only buy sort of the normal version. But it's such good fun in terms of you have this card at the bottom and you have these sort of foam pieces. They're going to fit some way on this tile, which is sort of with white squares and red squares. You can't go on the red squares, you have to go on the white ones. Some of the white ones have like play another one, or remove a block from a previous level and give it back to the owner, or swap a tile with someone else. You're like, well, this big piece, I don't want that. I'll swap this with you. And they're like, well, I have this other awkward one, so I'm going to pass it to you. And you're like, I think that was a good trade, but I'm not sure. So on your turn, you're adding a block, or you add a new level card and then add a block. And this tower is building up. It was absolutely great, I think, in part because of the XXL size. And I really do wish that that would be readily available, because I think the sort of grandness of the scale really sold it to me. I don't know how small the normal version is, but I'd still be interested to give it a go. But yeah, that was a lot of fun. Crazy Tower. That was at the Coiled Spring Games booth. And last but not least, the final game that I played before I sort of, headed off, wandered around, talked to different people, etc. and just generally enjoyed being there, was Unmatched Houdini versus the Genie. Now, if you've followed the channel for a while, you'll know I absolutely love Unmatched. You can check out my top 100 to see quite how high this game is. Not this one necessarily in particular, because it's only just in the collection. I've played it once. But Houdini versus the Genie is, or was, the only version I hadn't got in the collection that's available in the UK. It's now here, thankfully, so I've got all of the characters I could physically get unless I imported from America. So, the two different characters. I played as the Genie against Houdini and lost. Houdini has this super cool movement. When he boosts his movement, he can go anywhere. Now, that's quite a twist and means you're not safe anywhere. Combine that with the board in this one, which has secret passages. Secret passages being exactly the same as the ones in Cobble and Fog. They basically link various parts of the map. Wow. I love the secret passages in this. In this, I loved them, and also I hated them because it meant there was nowhere safe for me as the ranged Genie. I kept trying to run away, and it was very hard to stay away from Houdini. Bess, the sidekick, I managed to take out relatively easily. That didn't seem to really help Houdini, hinder Houdini that much, because his whole thing, apart from being able to go somewhere else, is this new mechanic of when I boost with this card, I get an effect. Now that could be draw a card, it could be... there was a whole range of different and annoying things that it did to me, basically. But yeah, that's a nice little addition that none of the other characters have got. So it almost makes you want that card only to be used as a boost. Some of his attacks allow the opponent to boost as well as him. So that's an interesting choice then for the opponent. And I don't think I made all of those decisions correctly. The biggest problem for me as the Genie was just trying to keep away from the melee character, try and just sort of burst down from range. A couple of times I had to get in and fight, and I think that was my downfall. But a really interesting, well, you got the three wishes cards. Now these are schemes in this. And you play them, and you've got a choice of like 3 things. Draw 5 cards is one of the options. You're just like, I don't think there's any other character that can draw more than like 3 cards in any way. 5 cards just fills your hand. That's fantastic, because it means you can just play your cards, bang, fill up. You haven't had to move. You haven't had to work your way slowly manoeuvring around the board, getting more cards. One of the other options on that same card, though, is the opponent discards 2 cards. That can be brutal to play against. You've only got a few cards in your hand, bang, you've got even less. Maybe you've got none, and now I can attack you knowing you can't defend. So, some great choices there. And the power is something like you can lose a health to discard. What was it? At the start of your turn, you may discard 1 card to gain an action, Again, just like with Houdini, who's using cards to boost a lot, this is an option of, I've got a lot of cards, but I don't know if I want to churn my deck this much. Because I'm not getting, I'd say churn the deck, burn through the deck, You don't ever refresh that deck. So it's just that little extra worry. Now, I think it is going to be worth it a lot of the time to do, or not a lot of the time, but certainly some of the time, to move, attack, and then move away. But it's just going through that deck and meaning, I've got a good defense card. Am I sure I want to use it? Again, some cool ones in there, because the Genie's got a 0 defense card, but you immediately gain 4 health. There's going to be some places where that's really good, and some places, like I found out, that sucked, because it was like, I'm back to full health, but I'm blocking no damage, and they're like, quabang, you're taking, and I can boost that 6, and it's like, so I've just taken 2 damage, and all that lovely health I thought I was regaining. against some of the like little hit characters, I think that could be really effective. But against someone that's going to absolutely wallop you, you could still die quite easily, like I did as the genie. Anyway, that's the final game that I played at UK Games Expo. I had a phenomenal time. Please check out my review, my whole video where I went through all of the games that I got. Now, a lot of them I haven't actually spoken about. Let's have a look. I spoke about that. 1, 2, 3 out of 8 or 9 games. The rest I have yet to play, so that's, there's plenty of games there that you'll hear about on the channel upcoming, so stay tuned for that. And until next time, have a great day gaming.